this the right time though to start thinking about it or making inquiries about your jobs? Because we know that time's ticking and you need to get that job right. And I was very, very honest with the unit, and I said I wanted to stay since I was earlier on in my training. But then, of course, I left the unit, went to work with you guys in Edinburgh, and then the scenario changed a bit. And but when do you start approaching people for that?
I think earlier than you think. I think 12 months, but when you're going into your last year, you need to start having this. Thinking about those aspects we were talking about before, about what you want to do, where you want to do that, and I think then you can't apply for jobs until 6 months before your CCT, but you need to start thinking about that earlier than you think, and start thinking where you want to be, and then as it's coming up to that 6 month mark, start to approach departments. If it's somewhere you want to work, or you hear they might be think about advertising. I think approaching a department at that point in time is good, because they might have a job that they can advertise whenever, and they're just holding off for someone to approach them. So I think speaking to people in your department and through societies and things can give you that.
Exactly, because I was going to say, how do you know who to approach? But probably SSG, BSG, this sort of places create your network, is it?
The flip side of that is, and I say it from the other side, is actually the consultants will be talking about this as well. Within the department, in the consultant meetings, they'll be saying, is there a skill set that we need? What training X, Y, and Z? They'd be a really good fit. So people have already started to have those conversations before as well, because so I think. Yeah, as late. Don't leave it too late. I completely agree with that.
Did you pick up the phone or just send an email? Did you go?
I think so obviously, if you want to, if it's within your department, obviously, I guess you can have that sort of conversation over a coffee. And I don't think there's anything wrong with starting those conversations with early and saying, look, I'd really like to say, and putting your position out there. I think but likewise, if it for every reason you want or you need to move, and work in a different unit, again, I think you'll meet these people, and gastroenterology is a relatively small world, and you'll know most
Scotland for sure.
You'll know most of the people around Scotland, for example. So just dropping those people in a friendly ear an email, just saying, look, I'm finishing in 12 months. What are the job prospects in your hospital? Can we have a chat about it? Can I come up and wherever that is, and can we have a chat over a coffee and meet the rest of the team? I think that shows initiative and there's the sort of kind of character traits that you probably want in somebody to work with you. If they're going to pick up the phone, pick up an email. I don't know.
If you also have a skill set that they're looking for, you want to make yourself known that you have that skill set that maybe nobody else has, or few people have.
I don't know if you guys had this as well, but I had a couple of either emails or phone calls just out of the blue. Places that I wasn't even expecting, and you're approaching CCT, would you be interested in coming to work here? And it's good to have those conversations. And I also, although I wanted to stay in Edinburgh, I contacted a couple of other units just to put feelers out there. And I was told by one place that they had a job coming up, but they'd already decided who they were going to appoint to it. So, at least in that way, you can have these conversations and, not get your hopes up or...
they can maybe have decided who they appointed to, but it's an open market, so people can apply for every job and go to any interview. Yeah. So, it's not a bad thing going for a job interview if that's what you want. Not only shows you that your attitude is, I'm good enough to get this, there's no reason why I shouldn't, but also gives you an opportunity to practice and meet people and to interview with people that you've not worked with before and, get to know around. So I think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and I would suggest people don't put all their eggs in one basket, because even with the best will in the world, all the colleagues in the department may want to appoint you and get you a job there, but sometimes the funding doesn't come through, or the managers don't agree to that there's a need for an extra post, and that can be pretty devastating at that time, and you kind of left yourself without a plan B. So definitely explore the options, have a contingency plan, so that you don't end up at CCT without having a job. You can always do your grace period, but my understanding of that is you have to have said you want to do that in advance. And
I think certainly, as most people getting towards CCT, especially if you've taken out some time to either do a fellowship or do research, you're pretty much ready to be a consultant at that point. And I think
we were all pretty ready
of a grace period, unless you really need it, is probably I think you're better off if you can, and you're fortunate enough to be able to get a job and go straight into it is a good position to be in. I think there's the obvious kind of put yourself out there before adverts come out, but then when adverts come out, they always conveniently have someone to contact in the department. And certainly when I saw there was the advert for the department in Ninewells, I contacted several people on the advert, and also Professor Dillon, who works in the department, and we arranged to go up and visit and things like that. I think visiting is quite a strange thing. You're kind of going up with your CV and handing out your CV and putting yourself out there, but it's a useful thing to do. And I think we talked about this before, putting yourself out there in those last 12 to 6 months is really important so that you get that job that you want.
Even if you're applying a job in the same department or you worked, as we said before, we're not used to contact management, or we probably don't know even who are people out there, but that's what you have to speak to, and I was very fortunate. I had great mentors throughout my training, and that's what I sought advice from at the end. I said, what do I do? How do I go about this? So I still find medicine quite a personal profession, and we often make choices and decide to take a path in our career because of personal relationship with our mentors and how we see our colleagues and people around us. And I really look for that sort of mentorship in my job, and that's what I did. And I was told who to contact and I had meeting with people in units where I worked for many years, and they didn't know who I was. They didn't know I was a trainee in the department because they never had a chance to interact with me. And I always tend to ask them, what are you looking for? A person working in this trust. So that was the question I was suggested to ask at the time. So it was very helpful because they were telling me things that then I used in my job interview as answers.
Okay.
And I think that's speaking about job interviews, and when you go and visit places, or even when your own department and things, thinking about your job interview, the questions that you ask, it's to try and get information from them. What are they looking for in people in the department? And what are they? What do you think will be big wins in your interview when it comes to the point of interview? I think what are the things that you need to know about and be able to answer and ask them about? Everyone gets that kind of awkward question in an interview of anything you want to ask us, and you need to have that prepared.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is not have a question to ask there, but. Very often when you go to visit these people, they will hint at the things that they're going to ask you about. So it's a very important thing to contact every member on the interview panel and go ahead.
I even ask all my colleagues now, consultant colleagues, which I've been a trainee with for many years, if they wanted to have a chat with me before I applied to a job, because I thought I was going to become a colleague of theirs. And some of them said, yes, we should have a chat. And most of the time it was about tips for my interview, because people that went through the process in recent years.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. I definitely reiterate that. And speaking to people that are on the panel, dropping once you've got that interview date, you've put, it's in the diary, and you're going for it. The speaking, making an effort, and it may not be reciprocated. Also with the external kind of interview as well. Just drop an email. This is who I am. Do you want to catch up for a coffee or a bit of chat? Because one, I guess it obviously shows that you're interested, and they've got their opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. But also, as Fran said, there might also be some hints or tips or kind of chat about whether that's conscious, we're looking for X, Y, and Z, or unconscious, X, Y, and Z is really needed in this department, and you can factor those sorts of responses into your your interview.
Definitely.
Yeah, but it's obviously, as you said before, this is a two-way process. It's something, I think, a skill set that I think we're not fantastic as a medic breed, and being able to sell ourselves and be able to go and ask for things. A lot of the time as trainees, we you're basically being told, right, you're in clinic Monday morning, you're going to do that, and then you're going to do something else. Where actually the power is shifting a little bit in that final year, isn't it? You're going to start to have those sorts of conversations about what I want a job to look like and what I would like to do. And it becomes much more less of a you are going to do this as a more of a compromise and a negotiation, and being able to embrace that and being comfortable having those conversations, I think, is really important.
I think it's kind of reflected as well in the kind of the interview type as well. For many of us, this will be the first time you've done an interview that's not a carousel. You haven't rotated around and answered specific questions and been told this is your CV station. This is, these are interviews that are time limited and it's a focus on you for 30 minutes. And I think that's a very different thing to prepare for as well. And I think the meeting the whole panel before the interview as well, it removes part of that fear of the unknown, both for them and for you, because they'll get a feel for you beforehand, but you'll also know that that's such and such from management, and that's the clinical lead, and that's the endoscopy lead, and you've got to meet these people beforehand and built up a very short-term relationship. You do know them, and that kind of allays some of your fears at the time of interview as well.
I mean, some trusts have courses for this. I mean, definitely Grampian had a course for coming up consultants and how to prepare to make your CV, appealing and prepare for the interview. Of course, then pandemic came, and I don't know your interview, but my interview was on Teams.
Yeah, mine was too.
So I had to learn how to look at a camera. I mean, to be fair, we did learn how to speak to patients, but there's a technique to that too. How to look. You're interacting with people and not just looking at a screen. So that was good just to speak to people that had a lot of interactions on Teams, and like my colleagues that work for the government, it was very good to have a chat with them to learn that technique to be good at video interviews.
And it varies quite a lot from trust to trust, I think, as well, because I'm aware some trusts will ask you to give a presentation on things, or some places will give you a clinical case and ask you to do that. Some places will do both, whereas many other places it's ethical questions and those type of things. So if you go and have a chat with the people on the panel, often they'll give you a hint.
Direction.
As a general rule, you get asked clinical question, right? Stuff about service development, stuff about research and teaching, all those types of things that they want you to be involved in, and indicating a willingness and a sort of general knowledge about that.
And there'll be someone from university if you're working at university teaching hospital, so you need to know who to speak to there as well.
It's not just clinicians on the panel, right?
No,
University representative and management, and don't never forget about the managers.
No, that's probably the most important.
Probably the most important person to speak to, I think. Because I guess it's probably a world that, at least when I was training, it's not a world that I knew very much about. I was very much on the fringes, and I think it's something that becomes so much more part of your job after CCT. And I think the earlier that you start to interact with these people, you'll just be able to, I guess, speak in very similar terms, see where each other are coming from, and I think using that in preparation for interview, I think, is really helpful.
And because they are there, sometimes your other colleagues there on that job interview, they're using that opportunity to taste the ground with management for certain specific things they're interested on, because that's what happened to my job interview. And my senior colleagues asked me a very difficult questions because it was testing the ground with management, but they warned me about that. So I had prepared some answers, but yes, it was. That's another thing to know. That there you may be put into difficult situations, but because they are trying to move their own agenda to some specific areas.
Sure, because the managers will be worried about waiting lists or their priorities, targets, etc. So, and I guess just having being honest that it's not just we don't work in a bubble. It's not just the clinicians. It's all part of the bigger team, and being able to have productive kind of conversations and relationships with these people, I think is really helpful.
Yeah. I think preparation, that's the word that stood out there for. I think it's probably kind of what we skirted around a bit already, but I rarely get these kind of books to prepare you for kind of exams and things, but I think there are books out there you can get, and it's going through those kind of clinical scenarios, how to structure an answer, because it's really easy. I personally find that I can waffle for hours about something, whereas you can, if you have that structure, and these books do it for you. And I had a couple of friends who had become consultants then grill me, and we did it on Teams because of COVID, and he sat there, turned on my Teams, and he was wearing a shirt and tie and grilled me, and it was really good. And I think that's the thing, is you can prepare for the things you expect to come up, and you'll get these different types of questions, and it's really important to prepare, because what you don't want to do is to leave that interview thinking, if I'd prepared for that, I could have answered that question better. I think that's a really important
There's
thing.
always a colleague in the department that will have a folder ready, and if it's passed on generations and have been updated, a list in my department, there's been a folder going around for a while.
And those people that that worry about interview, maybe, as I said, maybe it doesn't come naturally to them, having those being able to structure an answer. Yes, of course, hopefully there might be people internally that might be able to help you develop those skills. But also, as you said, there's actually interview courses you can do, and I think that that would be something to think about. If you really needed a job X in place Y, and there is the external candidate from London who is going to be really competitive.
The other thing to consider is the BSG mentoring program.
Yeah.
Because that's really helpful for those sorts of transition periods, and you can choose a mentor that recently been through it and can give you tips, and also creates your network. So why not?
For most people, it feels quite excruciating to say I'm good at this and sit in front of a panel and say that to people. But ultimately, you do need to do that in your consultant job interview. Yeah. You need to sell them that you have skills that they want in that department, and that takes practice. And so, in addition to structuring your answers and being able to deal with curveballs, actually answering in a way that makes you look good and that you've got confidence in yourself, but you're not arrogant, it's a skill that you have to practice before your interview.
Practice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.